I was discharged from the hospital. After spending 5 years in the mental hospital, everyone thought I was cured. My stepbrother, Adrian, came to pick me up. 5 years ago, he and his friends cornered me in an alley, subjecting me to extreme humiliation and bullying, causing my mental breakdown. My mother, to please this stepson, personally sent me to the mental hospital, claiming to the outside world that I had a family history of mental illness. Adrian looked at my vacant face and smiled contentedly. "Little idiot, you're home now. You have to be obedient from now on." I nodded, obediently following behind him. He didn't know that I hadn't taken a single pill in the past 5 years. I was just learning how to become a perfect, high IQ mental patient. Back home, I saw Adrian's friends were also there, sizing me up with mocking eyes. One of them was the one who took the lead in stripping my clothes back then. At dinner, in front of everyone, I picked up the scalding hot soup and poured it directly on his face. Amid his heart-wrenching screams, I hid behind my mother, crying in fear. "Mom," he glared at me. "I'm so scared. I didn't do it on purpose." The car door opened. Adrian leaned against the car and beckoned to me. "Cora, come here." I was wearing the striped hospital gown issued by the hospital, washed to a faded color, and slowly moved over. He looked me up and down, his eyes as if assessing an item that had just been repaired. "The doctor said you've recovered well. Is your mind clear?" I raised my head, looked at him with empty eyes, and then grinned, revealing a silly smile. The satisfaction on Adrian's face increased slightly. He reached out to pat my face, but I suddenly flinched, hiding behind the nurse. The nurse quickly explained, "Mr. Adrian, although Cora's condition is stable, she is still easily frightened. Please bear with us." Adrian impatiently waved his hand, pulled out a wad of money from his wallet, and stuffed it into the nurse's hand. "All right, I'm taking her away." He grabbed my arm and stuffed me into the passenger seat. The car was filled with an expensive perfume, incompatible with the cheap disinfectant smell on me. "Little idiot, you're home." He started the car, his tone frivolous. "You have to be obedient from now on. Don't go crazy again, you hear?" I hugged my knees, buried my face in them, and nodded. He thought I was still the Cora from 5 years ago, who could be scared to tears by a single word from him. He didn't know that every day for the past 5 years, I had been honing my acting skills in hell. Back to the villa I had been away from for 5 years, the living room was full of people. All familiar faces. Adrian's group of cronies. Back in the alley, they surrounded me one by one, laughing wildly and viciously. Now they were looking at me with the eyes of someone watching a monkey in a zoo. "Yo, Adrian, brought your precious sister back?" A man with dyed yellow hair stood up. His name was Derek, and he was the one who first started to tear my shirt back then. My mother, Helen, walked quickly down the stairs, a proper smile on her face. "Adrian is back. Cora is back too." She walked to my side, wanting to hold my hand, but I dodged it. Her expression stiffened, but she quickly returned to normal, and said softly to me, "Cora, don't be afraid, they are all your brother's friends." I hid behind Adrian, only showing a pair of eyes, looking at them timidly. Adrian enjoyed this feeling. He pushed me forward. "What are you afraid of? They won't eat you." Derek smiled and walked over, reaching out to pinch my face. 5 years and our little beauty is still so timid. The moment his hand was about to touch my skin, I suddenly opened my mouth and bit his finger hard. Derek let out a scream, and blood flowed down the corners of my mouth. The living room was instantly silent. Everyone was stunned by this sudden scene. I let go of my mouth, spat out a mouthful of blood, and then burst into tears with a wah, turning around and throwing myself into Helen's arms. "Mom, bad guy. He wants to hit me. I'm so scared. I didn't do it on purpose." Helen held my trembling body, her face pale, and shouted angrily at Derek. "Derek, what are you doing? Don't you know she's sick?" Derek clutched his bleeding finger, wincing in pain, his face full of disbelief. I didn't want to do anything. This lunatic bit me." Adrian's face also darkened. The atmosphere at dinner was extremely oppressive. Derek's finger was simply bandaged, and he sat opposite me, his eyes wishing he could swallow me alive. I lowered my head, picking at my food in small bites, like a frightened rabbit. Helen kept putting food on my plate, her tone as gentle as dripping water. Cora, eat more, you're so thin. A bowl of mushroom soup was brought up by the maid, steaming hot. Derek's gaze towards me became more and more fierce, even raising his foot to kick my calf lightly under the table. My body trembled, and the bowl in my hand almost fell. I raised my head and met his warning and threatening gaze. He mouthed to me, "Just you wait." I looked at him and suddenly smiled. That smile was innocent and strange. In the next second, I picked up the bowl of scalding hot mushroom soup in front of me, walked quickly to him, and in front of everyone, poured it all over his face. A scream 100 times more miserable than when I bit his finger resounded throughout the restaurant. Derek rolled on the ground, covering his face, his skin swelling and blistering at a visible rate. I dropped the bowl in my hand, widened my eyes in terror, quickly hid behind Helen, grabbed her clothes tightly, and cried heartbrokenly, "Mom, he's glaring at me. His eyes are so scary. I'm so scared. I didn't do it on purpose." Adrian stood there, looking at Derek groaning on the ground, and then looking at me. On his face, for the first time, there was a complicated expression that I couldn't understand. Derek was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was second-degree burns, and it was inevitable that he would have scars on his face. In the living room, Adrian's friends' gazes at me changed from mockery to fear and anger. "Adrian, this isn't over. She's a lunatic. She must be sent back to the mental hospital." Helen held me tightly in her arms, screaming at them, "You shut up. Derek frightened her first. My daughter is just sick. She didn't do it on purpose." "Sick? Does being sick mean she can hurt people at will? Auntie Helen, you're too protective of her. Get out. Get out of here." Helen was emotional, pointing to the door. "You are not welcome here." The group was eventually persuaded to leave by Adrian. Before leaving, Victor pointed at me and said to Adrian, "Adrian, this lunatic is a scourge to keep at home. You take care of it." Only the three of us were left in the huge living room. Adrian lit a cigarette, and in the swirling smoke, I couldn't see his expression clearly. "Mom, you take her upstairs to rest first." His voice was very deep. Helen was relieved and immediately pulled me upstairs. My room was still the same as it was 5 years ago, pink wallpaper, princess-style furniture, just covered with a thin layer of dust. Helen made the bed for me, nagging, "Cora, don't be afraid, Mom is here. No one can bully you." I sat on the bed, hugging an old stuffed bear, not saying a word. She sighed, patted my head, and turned to go out. The door was gently locked from the outside. The timidity and fear on my face disappeared instantly, replaced by a cold calmness. I walked to the window and looked down at the garden, where Adrian was talking to Victor on the phone. The sound was loud, faintly carrying upstairs. "I understand. I'll cover all the medical expenses, and give him an additional 200,000 for nutrition. Yes, it's my fault I didn't watch her carefully enough." After hanging up the phone, Adrian punched the tree beside him. I knew clearly that he wasn't angry about me hurting someone, but angry that I had caused him trouble. The next day, Victor came again. He came to find Adrian to play games, as if what happened last night was already in the past. But the way he looked at me held a bit more wariness and disgust. Adrian's study had a top-of-the-line gaming setup, Victor's treasure, said to have cost hundreds of thousands to assemble. At this moment, he was wearing headphones, completely absorbed in the game. I carried a glass of orange juice and walked in quietly. Adrian looked up at me, frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. I walked over to Victor and curiously watched the flashing screen. "Wow, so many little people fighting," I exclaimed like a child. Victor glanced at me impatiently. "Get out of here, don't bother me." I didn't move, but instead moved my face closer, pointing at the screen. "This one glows." My hand accidentally bumped into the water glass he had placed on the table. A full glass of water accurately poured onto the host's cooling vents. A spark flashed, accompanied by a pungent burnt smell, and the once colorful case instantly went black. The entire room fell silent. Victor abruptly took off his headphones, turned to look at the ruined equipment, and his eyes instantly turned red. "My computer!" He let out a beastly roar and turned to pounce on me. "I'll kill you, you crazy person." I was prepared. The moment he pounced, I screamed and fell backward, the back of my head hitting the corner of the desk heavily. Blood flowed down my hair. I didn't cry, just widened my eyes. My body started to convulse violently, and I made ho-ho sounds from my mouth. These were typical epilepsy symptoms, which I had learned from a fellow patient in the hospital. Cora, Adrian and Helen, who had rushed in upon hearing the noise, exclaimed simultaneously. Helen pushed Victor away and hugged me, crying and shouting, "Call an ambulance! Quickly!" Victor, looking at my head covered in blood and the convulsions, was completely stunned. He wanted to explain, but Helen slapped him so hard he couldn't speak. "You beast! If anything happens to her, I'll make you pay with your life." Adrian, looking at this chaotic scene, had a frighteningly gloomy expression. He didn't go to help me, nor did he go to comfort Victor. He just stood there, his probing eyes fixed on my half-open eyes, distorted by convulsions. I felt it. His suspicion, like a poisonous snake, had coiled around me. I was sent to the hospital, where I received 3 stitches on my head. The doctor said that I had experienced excessive fright, triggering stress disorder. Victor's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computer was completely ruined, but he wouldn't receive a single word of compensation. No one would argue about this with a mentally ill person. Not only would he not receive compensation, but he would also bear the infamy of bullying a mentally ill person, causing injury. The day I was discharged from the hospital and returned home, Helen put away all the sharp and fragile objects in the house. The way she looked at me was full of guilt and affection. "Cora, it's all Mom's fault. Mom didn't protect you." I leaned in her arms, like a docile cat. Only I myself knew that this was just an appetizer. Adrian's business seemed to be in trouble, and he began bringing different women home frequently. One of them, named Isabel, was his official girlfriend, a wealthy heiress from a prominent family. Isabel was very beautiful and also very arrogant. The way she looked at me was like looking at an eyesore and dirty stray cat. She never spoke to me, and would even deliberately avoid the paths I had walked on. That day, Adrian held a party at home to celebrate securing a major project. Isabel, as the hostess, wore an expensive dress and moved among the guests. Her best friend, Serena, also came. Serena wasn't as strikingly beautiful as Isabel, but she was gentle and graceful, always looking at Isabel with an adoring and slightly jealous expression. I was alone on the sofa in the corner, playing with my stuffed bear, out of place in the lively scene. In the middle of the party, Isabel went to touch up her makeup. As she passed by me, her high heels accidentally stepped on the corner of the stuffed bear. She frowned in disgust and kicked it. "So dirty." I looked up at her. She felt uncomfortable being watched by me and snorted coldly. "What are you looking at, idiot?" I didn't speak, just silently picked up the stuffed bear and brushed off the dust on it. After the party ended, the guests left. Adrian was drunk and Serena was helping him back to his room. Isabel, because she wanted to maintain her figure, didn't drink any alcohol, and was directing the servants to clean up the mess. I quietly walked behind her and tugged on her sleeve. She turned around impatiently. "What is it?" I held my phone up to her face, the screen playing a video. The video was blurry and the lighting was dim, secretly recorded in Adrian's room. But it could be clearly seen that the 2 people entangled in bed were Adrian and Serena. In the background, Serena's charming voice could be heard. "Adrian, when are you going to break up with Isabel? I can't wait." "Soon, baby, as soon as I get that project from her family. That stupid woman actually thinks I love her." Isabel's face lost all color in an instant. She stared at the screen, her body swaying, almost unable to stand. I took back the phone, tilted my face up, and asked her in a naive and confused tone, "Pretty sister, what game are they playing? Why aren't they wearing clothes?" Isabel turned her head abruptly, grabbing my shoulders with so much force that she almost crushed my bones. "This video. Where did you get this video?" I was frightened by her and shrank my neck, tears welling up in my eyes. I picked it up. Under brother's bed. Isabel let out a sharp scream. She pushed me away and rushed upstairs like a madwoman. Soon, loud arguments, the sound of things breaking, and the cries of women and the roars of men came from upstairs. Helen was disturbed and rushed upstairs to mediate. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening to the cataclysmic storm upstairs. Adrian and Isabel were completely finished. Not only that, But the project that Adrian wanted to get through Isabel's family was also completely ruined. I lowered my head, looking at the miniature camera specially used for recording audio and video in my hand. This was what I had secretly asked a nursing assistant to buy for me with the pocket money I had saved in the hospital. I walked into the kitchen, threw it into the trash can, and pressed the shredding button. The evidence had been delivered to where it needed to be. Its mission was over. In the midst of the chaos, Adrian rushed down from upstairs, grabbed me by the collar, and pinned me against the wall. His eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged beast. "It was you. You did this, didn't you?" I was trembling with fear, tears falling like broken beads. "Brother, I don't know. I don't know anything." He looked at my terrified face, and the rage in his eyes slowly turned into a bottomless chill. He released me, took 2 steps back, and re-examined me as if he were seeing me for the first time. Isabel's revenge came swiftly and ruthlessly. Not only did she ruin Adrian's project, but she also used her family's influence to create obstacles for Adrian's company at every turn. Adrian was overwhelmed, and I saw him sitting in his study late at night, chain-smoking cigarettes, several times. He and Serena also broke up. Rumor has it that Isabel took people to block Serena in her apartment, beat her up, and posted photos of it on her WeChat moments. Overnight, Adrian became the laughingstock of the social circle, and I was still the mentally ill patient who needed to be carefully taken care of. Helen felt even more guilty towards me, believing that my unintentional video had ruined her son's future. She began to compensate me in every possible way, buying me expensive clothes and jewelry. Anything I glanced at, she would immediately buy it. Adrian's friends also stopped coming to the house, especially Victor. He seemed to have developed a psychological shadow towards me. But fear could not smooth the scars they had etched in my heart. What I wanted was an eye for an eye. I began to imitate the methods they used to bully me back then. Late at night, after everyone was asleep, I used the lock-picking skills I learned in the hospital to quietly sneak out of my room. I went to Victor's house. His house was in a high-end residential area with tight security. But I knew he had a habit of always hiding a spare key under the doormat for convenience. I wore gloves and a hat, avoiding all the surveillance cameras. I used red paint that I had prepared in advance to write one death character after another on his snow-white bedroom walls. I also wrote, "I know what you did in the alley 5 years ago. You're next." After doing all this, I returned the same way I came, leaving no trace behind. The next day, I was watering the flowers in the garden when Helen's phone rang. It was Adrian calling. Her face turned pale instantly. "What? Victor is crazy? What do you mean? Rambling nonsense." I pricked up my ears, listening to her conversation. "What walls with writing? The police can't figure out who did it." "Adrian, what? What exactly is going on?" Hanging up the phone, Helen sat down on the chair, looking lost. I walked over and handed her a newly picked rose. "Mom, are you unhappy?" She looked at my pure eyes, forced a smile, and touched my head. "It's okay, Cora, be good." A few days later, another incident occurred. Another man who participated in the bullying back then, Marcus, found a dead snake in his car. He was so scared that he peed his pants on the spot, and in a daze he crashed his car into the roadside guardrail. He was unharmed, but he was scared out of his wits. Panic, like a plague, spread in Adrian's little circle. They began to suspect each other, each feeling like they would be the next target. They all thought of me at the same time. Cora, the one they bullied into mental illness, who had now become strangely behaved. They rushed to Adrian's house, roaring at him. "Adrian! It's definitely that madwoman. It's her. She's taking revenge on us." Who else could it be? She's a vengeful ghost now. Adrian sat on the sofa, listening to their accusations with a gloomy face, without saying a word. Helen rushed out of the room, like a hen protecting her chick. "What nonsense are you talking about? Cora sleeps with me every night. How could she go out? You did something wrong. Don't try to blame it on my daughter." To protect me, Helen had indeed been making me sleep in her room recently. But she slept soundly, and she couldn't possibly know when I went out and when I came back. "Auntie Helen, don't deceive yourself anymore," Victor shouted excitedly. "Derek was burned, my computer, Adrian's girlfriend, and now it's our turn. It's all too coincidental." Adrian finally spoke, his voice hoarse. All of you shut up. He stood up, his eyes sweeping over everyone. Without evidence, don't go crazy here. He kicked everyone out. The moment he closed the door, he turned around, his eyes burning as he looked at me behind Helen. I was hugging my stuffed bear, shrinking in the corner, as if frightened by the argument. He walked towards me step by step. Helen nervously stood in front of me. Adrian, what are you doing? Don't scare Cora. Adrian walked around her, squatted down in front of me, and looked at me at eye level. He reached out and gently stroked the ear of my stuffed bear, his voice low and coaxing. Cora, tell brother, did you have any strange dreams at night? I looked up, my eyes blankly looking at him. Dreams? I tilted my head, thought for a long time, and then smiled happily. I dreamed that a lot of bad people were crying. Derek was discharged from the hospital. The scar on his face was like a hideous centipede, perched on his once handsome face. The blow of disfigurement had made him gloomy and violent. He was no longer as keen on attending parties as he used to be, but had become obsessed with racing. It seemed that only extreme speed could make him forget the pain on his face and the resentment in his heart. I knew my chance had come. In the past 5 years, I had not only been studying acting, but also frantically absorbing knowledge. The old books that no one cared about in the mental hospital's library had become my best teachers. Chemistry, physics, mechanical principles. I was like a sponge, absorbing everything that could be used for my purposes. I began to consciously show Helen my interest in cars. I would squat in the garage, watching the driver wipe the car, for an entire afternoon. Helen only thought I was childish and even laughed and told Adrian, Cora seems to like cars, why don't you buy her a toy car to play with? I clapped my hands and smiled. I want a real one, one that can run. They all treated me like an idiot, and no one would be wary of me. Taking advantage of the opportunity to help wash the car, I approached Derek's flashy red sports car again and again. I used a small syringe hidden in my sleeve. Every time I wiped the car, I would accidentally get close to the brake fluid hose. Then little by little, extremely slowly, I would draw out the brake fluid. This was a process that required great patience. I couldn't draw too much at once, otherwise it would be easily discovered. It took me 2 whole weeks. That day, Derek had arranged to go to the mountain road in the suburbs for a race with a group of people. He happened to run into me watering the flowers in the garden before he left. He stopped, looking down at me, the scar on his face looking particularly twisted in the sunlight. Little crazy, what are you looking at? I didn't say anything, just stared straight at him. He was unnerved by my gaze and spat. Bad luck. He opened the car door, got in, and started the engine. The sports car roared and sped away. I put down the watering can and watched the car disappear, a slight smile curving my lips. Goodbye, Derek. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Adrian received a phone call. His hand trembled, and the phone fell to the ground. What did you say? The winding mountain road. Fell off a cliff. His face instantly turned as white as the wall. Derek was dead. The speed was too high, and at a sharp turn, the brakes failed, sending the entire car crashing through the guardrail and plunging into a cliff dozens of meters deep. The car was destroyed, and there was no remains. The police investigation results came out quickly. The brake system had an unexplained slow leak, causing the brake fluid to deplete after high-speed driving and frequent braking. Ultimately, it was classified as an accident. No one suspected me. How could a mentally ill person who couldn't even take care of themselves commit such a precise murder? Derek's death was like a boulder thrown into a calm lake. Adrian's little circle completely exploded. They rushed to Adrian's house like madmen, pointing at my nose and calling me a devil. Adrian, how long are you going to protect her? We're next to die. Call the police. We have to call the police. Arrest her. Adrian sat on the sofa, smoking cigarette after cigarette, as if his soul had been taken away. He ignored his friends clamoring and didn't even look at Helen, who was hysterically protecting me. His gaze passed over everyone and landed on me. It was a look mixed with fear, suspicion, and extreme coldness. Suddenly, he stood up and walked silently into the garage. My heart sank. He still suspected me. After a long time, he came out of the garage, holding a rag in his hand. He walked up to me and unfolded the rag. On it was a dried, inconspicuous oil stain. Brake fluid. It was what I had accidentally dripped when I drained the brake fluid for the last time. I thought it would evaporate quickly, but it had left a trace. The living room was silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on that tiny oil stain. Helen's face was pale, and she murmured, "What? What is this?" Adrian didn't answer her. He just stared at me and asked, word by word, "Cora, tell me, what is this?" At that moment, the whole world seemed to freeze. Everyone held their breath, and more than a dozen eyes were focused on me like spotlights. Helen's body was trembling. She looked at the oil stain, then at me, her eyes filled with disbelief and horror. Victor and Marcus, on the other hand, had a just as I thought expression, their eyes filled with both fear and the joy of finding the real killer. Adrian crouched down in front of me, his voice low, but with an irresistible sense of oppression. "Tell me, did you do this?" I looked at him, my eyes filled with confusion and fear. I shook my head, then nodded, opened my mouth, but couldn't make any sound. My body began to tremble uncontrollably. My breathing became rapid. This was the most dangerous time in my 5 years of pretending to be crazy. Adrian's suspicion had reached its peak, and any small flaw could lead to my ruin. "Speak." Adrian suddenly raised his voice and grabbed my shoulders. I was so frightened by him that I screamed, then pushed him away and ran. I didn't run towards Helen for protection, but rushed towards the living room's floor-to-ceiling window like a headless fly. With a loud bang, I slammed my head hard against the hard-tempered glass. The huge impact made me see stars. My forehead split open instantly, and warm liquid flowed down my cheeks. But I didn't stop. As if I couldn't feel the pain, I slammed my head against the glass again and again like a madman. "No, it wasn't me. Don't look at me. Go away. All of you go away," I shouted incoherently, my movements frantic and desperate. Everyone in the living room was stunned by my self-harm. "Cora." Helen was the first to react. She rushed over crying and hugged me tightly from behind. "Quick, hold her back. She's having another episode." Adrian was also stunned. He looked at me, my face covered in blood, my eyes crazy, the suspicion on his face replaced by shock and a hint of pity. He and the others frantically dragged me away from the window and held me down on the ground. I was still struggling desperately, with surprising strength. I picked up a crystal ornament from the coffee table next to me and smashed it on my arm without thinking. "Don't touch me. You're all bad people. You all want to hurt me." In the chaos, Adrian's hand was deeply cut as he tried to take the object from my hand. Finally, the family doctor was called in an emergency and injected me with a strong sedative. The world finally became quiet. I lay in bed, my forehead and arms wrapped in bandages. Helen stayed by the bed, holding my hand and crying bitterly. Outside the door, Adrian and Victor could be heard arguing. "Adrian, can't you see it? She's faking it. She's acting." "Enough." Adrian's voice was full of exhaustion and rage. "You saw it with your own eyes. Would a normal person hurt themselves like that? She doesn't even want her life. That's just her trick to gain sympathy." "Trick to gain sympathy?" "Victor, get your head out of your ass. She's mentally ill. We drove her crazy 5 years ago. Now that Derek is dead, you want to put all the blame on a patient." The door went silent. After a long time, I heard Adrian's weary voice. "Maybe, you're right, we were all wrong. Wrong from the start." I closed my eyes and at an angle no one could see. The corner of my mouth curled into a cold smile. "Adrian, you're finally starting to doubt yourself. From now on, the rules of this game of hunter and prey will be set by me. The more you doubt, the more you will fall into the trap I have carefully woven for you, until you are doomed." After that self-harm incident, Adrian's surveillance of me obviously relaxed. The look in his eyes was no longer just scrutiny and suspicion, but a more complex emotion, something like guilt. He probably really believed that I had been stimulated by them, causing my condition to worsen and leading me to do those extreme things. And Helen, even more, treated me like a fragile glass doll, wishing she could hold me in her hand 24 hours a day. This gave me excellent room to maneuver. My next target is Adrian himself. What I want to destroy is not only his friends and his love, but also the career he is so proud of. I started to use my harmless identity to freely enter and exit his study. At first, I just went in to space out or play with some files he didn't want. When he saw it, he just frowned and had Helen take me away. Later, he gradually got used to my presence. He would even hold video conferences with his assistant in the study, discussing confidential company matters. And I would just sit on the carpet not far away, doodling on white paper with crayons, humming out-of-tune children's songs. In their eyes, I was just a harmless backdrop. They didn't know that my seemingly empty eyes were recording every word they said. The hand that was doodling wasn't drawing flowers and grass, but key business data, information about partners, and their planned shady operations. I also secretly installed a keylogger on his computer. I bought it online, disguised as a regular USB connector. I plugged it into the most hidden spot behind the computer case when he wasn't around. From that day on, all his account passwords, chat logs, and email content were constantly sent to my preset anonymous mailbox. I was like the most patient hunter, quietly weaving my net. This net was filled with all the evidence of Adrian's and the Jiang family's crimes over the years. Tax evasion, commercial bribery, embezzlement, stock manipulation. There was even dirt on how they drove a competitor to ruin in order to win a project. I sorted all this evidence clearly and categorized it. I also discovered that Adrian and his friends had a private social group. In the group, they would share some unsightly things. Videos of group orgies, photos of drug use, and even their glorious deeds of bullying others in the past, including me. I downloaded and saved them all one by one. So I wasn't the only victim. So, their happiness was built on the suffering of countless others. I looked at the ugly faces on the computer screen. My heart is cold as ice. Not enough. Just putting them in jail is far from enough. I want them to be shattered when they are at their most glorious. I want the entire Jiang family, this family that is beautiful on the outside but rotten on the inside, to be completely overturned. I encrypted all the evidence and uploaded it to several overseas cloud servers. Then I put that USB drive containing all their crimes, into the body of a teddy bear. The one I hug every day. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Everything was ready. I just needed an opportunity. An opportunity to make the fireworks explode in the most dazzling moment. Soon the opportunity came. Adrian's company, after a series of illegal operations, successfully obtained a municipal engineering project. This project could bring billions in profits to the Jiang family. To celebrate, the Jiang family was going to host a grand banquet. The banquet invited all the celebrities and dignitaries in the city. Adrian was going to officially announce the news that day, pushing the Jiang family's reputation to its peak. I sat in my room, listening to Helen excitedly describe the grand occasion of the banquet to me. Cora, Mommy has ordered the most beautiful princess dress for you. On that day you have to dress up like a little princess. I looked up and smiled sweetly at her. Okay, Mommy, I will. I will personally send you to the guillotine, and then wearing the most beautiful dress, I will hold a funeral for you. On the day of the banquet, the Jiang family's villa was brightly lit and filled with expensive cars. The air was filled with the scent of perfumes and shimmering dresses, and the clinking of glasses. Adrian wore a custom-made suit, spiritedly mingling among the big shots. His father, Julian, my nominal stepfather, accepted everyone's compliments with a radiant face. Helen, like a proud peacock, flaunted her excellent son to the ladies. And I, wearing the white tulle dress Helen had prepared for me, sat quietly at the top of the stairs on the second floor, like a forgotten doll. My position was very good. I could see everything downstairs clearly, and I wouldn't attract anyone's attention. I was waiting for 8 o'clock in the evening. That was the climax of the banquet. Adrian would go on stage to give a speech and announce the earth-shattering good news. It was also the time I had set to detonate everything. 7:55 p.m. I took out the cell phone hidden in my dress pocket. It was a black phone that I had prepared long ago, without any identifying information. I pressed the send button that had been pre-programmed. In an instant, dozens of anonymous emails, carrying evidence enough to destroy everything, were sent simultaneously to the official mailboxes of major media outlets, the Commission for Discipline Inspection, the Tax Bureau, and the Public Security Bureau. After doing all this, I restored the phone to its factory settings, then went to the bathroom, disassembled it, and flushed the parts down the toilet, destroying the evidence. I returned to the top of the stairs, sat down again, and quietly waited for the judgment to come. 8 o'clock sharp. The melodious music stopped, and the spotlight shone on the stage in the center of the banquet hall. Adrian straightened his tie and walked onto the stage with great spirit. He picked up the microphone, his face filled with an uncontrollable smile. Distinguished guests, friends, good evening. Today, I have good news to announce to everyone. Before he could finish speaking, the door of the banquet hall was rudely pushed open from the outside with a bang. A group of police officers and discipline inspection personnel in uniforms, with serious expressions, poured in. The middle-aged man at the head showed his credentials and a search warrant. Police investigation. Everyone is to remain still. The entire banquet hall fell silent instantly. All the guests were stunned, not understanding what was happening. The smile on Adrian's face froze. Julian's face turned pale in an instant. Comrade, is there some kind of misunderstanding? He forced a smile and went up to meet them. The leading man ignored him, his gaze sweeping across the entire room like lightning, finally settling on Adrian. Adrian, Julian, Helen, Victor, Marcus. We have received a real name report suspecting you of being involved in multiple economic crimes, tax evasion, and organizing group orgies and other illegal activities. Now, in accordance with the law, we are summoning you for investigation and conducting a search here. With a boom, the crowd erupted. Those guests who had just been chatting and laughing with the Jiang family, calling each other brothers, now retreated like they were avoiding a plague, drawing a line between themselves and them. The reporters' flashes flickered like crazy, recording the expressions on the Jiang family's faces as they fell from heaven to hell. No, this isn't true. Someone is framing us. Helen screamed out of control. Julian's legs weakened, and he almost collapsed to the ground. Adrian stood on the stage, the spotlight still shining on him, but it seemed incredibly ironic. He didn't shout or defend himself. He just suddenly raised his head, his gaze piercing through the crowd of terrified people, locking onto me at the top of the stairs on the second floor. I sat there, wearing a pure white tulle dress, holding a teddy bear in my arms. In the chaotic, dirty hell of humanity downstairs, I was like an angel untouched by dust. I looked at him, and then slowly gave him a smile. It was a smile he had never seen before, cold, mocking, and filled with endless pleasure. At that moment he understood everything. All the doubts, guesses, and anxieties were answered in that smile, the final and most cruel answer. It was him, it was them who personally sent me to hell. And I, returning from hell, dragged them all down with me. The Jiang family was overturned overnight. That night, the police found a large number of forged contracts and bribery ledgers in the villa's safe and Adrian's study. The evidence, along with the content of my anonymous tip, matched perfectly. Adrian, Julian, and the others in their circle were all criminally detained. Helen was also taken away, suspected of shielding them and participating in money laundering. As a key figure in this case, I was taken back to the police station to cooperate with the investigation. In the interrogation room, facing the police's questions, I appeared terrified and bewildered. Officer, I don't know. I don't know anything. I hugged my stuffed bear, huddled in the chair, and cried incessantly. Where's my mom? Where's my brother? Where did they go? My attending physician was also called in, and he provided the police with a thick stack of my medical records. Cora has severe schizophrenia and post-traumatic stress disorder. Her cognitive abilities are similar to a child's. She couldn't possibly understand what you're saying. The police officer in charge of the case looked at me, his eyes filled with sympathy. Poor child, this family has ruined her. During the interrogation, Adrian and the others frantically accused me. It's her. She did it all. She's faking. She's a devil. But no one believed a criminal's death throes. Faced with ironclad evidence and under the perfect protection of being a mentally ill person, their accusations seemed so pale and feeble. In the end, I was identified as a victim. Having lost all guardians, I was sent back to the mental hospital again for long-term care. The day I was sent back, the weather was beautiful. The sunlight shone through the car window onto my face, warm and comforting. At the hospital entrance, it was the same nurse. When she saw me, she sighed. Back again. She took my small bundle and led me by the hand towards the familiar white building. It's good to be back. It's quiet here and no one will hurt you anymore. I didn't speak, just obediently followed behind her. As we passed the garden, I saw a news report about the aftermath of the Jiang family case playing on TV. Jiang Corporation's stock price plummeted, on the verge of bankruptcy. All those involved would face the severe punishment of the law. In the news footage, Adrian was handcuffed and escorted onto a police car. He seemed 10 years older, his hair graying, his eyes hollow. Through the screen, his gaze seemed to pierce through time and space, landing on me. In it, there was no longer the arrogant contempt, only endless regret and fear. The game is over. I was taken back to my room. It was the same one, with iron bars on the window and a lock on the door. The nurse helped me make the bed and said softly, "Rest well. This will be your home from now on." After she finished speaking, she turned and left. The door clicked shut from the outside. I was alone in the room. The whole world fell silent. I walked to the window with the iron bars, looking at the free sky outside. 5 years. I spent 5 years weaving a cage for myself, and digging a grave for them. I slowly raised my hand and touched my cheek. Then I smiled. Not the innocent, harmless giggle, nor the cold, mocking sneer, but a genuine, relaxed, and radiant smile from the heart. This was the first real smile I had shown in 5 years. The sun was shining, and the breeze was gentle, and I had finally been reborn. The days in the mental hospital were as calm as stagnant water. Every day, I cooperated with the doctors for various examinations and took my medicine on time. As soon as those colorful pills entered my mouth, I would use my tongue to hold them against the inside of my gums. And as soon as the nurse left, I would spit them all into the toilet and flush them away. My acting was already perfect. In the eyes of the doctors and nurses, I was a patient whose condition was stable, whose emotions were calm, but who would never be cured. They sympathized with me, pitied me, would bring me small snacks, or take me to the garden for a while when the weather was nice. I became a model patient here. One day, a man in a suit and leather shoes came to the hospital. He claimed to be my lawyer, appointed by the court. He told me that the Jiang family case had been finalized. Julian and Adrian were sentenced to life imprisonment with multiple charges combined. Helen was found guilty of aiding and abetting and sentenced to 5 years. Victor, Marcus, and others were also punished according to their respective crimes. All of the Jiang family's illegal income was confiscated, and after paying off all debts, there was still a considerable amount of legitimate assets left. And I, as Julian's legal stepdaughter and the recognized sole victim in this case, had the legal right to inherit this inheritance. Ms. Cora, the lawyer pushed up his glasses and said in a businesslike manner, "Considering your mental condition, the court has decided to establish a trust fund for this inheritance, which will be managed by the law firm I work for. The fund will be responsible for all your future living and medical expenses, ensuring you have no worries for the rest of your life." I sat in the chair, holding the stuffed bear in my arms, looking at him with a blank expression, as if I didn't understand what he was saying. The lawyer sighed and pushed a document in front of me. "This is the document you need to sign. Just put your fingerprint on it." I stretched out my finger, pressed it into the red ink pad, and then left a crooked fingerprint on the document that would determine my future wealth. The lawyer put away the document and stood up. "Well, Miss Cora, I wish you a speedy recovery." He left. I looked out the window, a bird flying freely in the sky. No worries about food and clothing. The rest of my life. What ironic words. They used money to buy my freedom, to buy my life. Now this money, tainted with sin and blood, was back in my hands. I took out the USB drive hidden in the stuffed bear's body and walked to the window. Downstairs was the hospital's garbage incinerator. I forcefully broke it in half, and then through the gaps in the bars, accurately threw it in. All the secrets, all the past, disappeared with the rising black smoke. From now on, there would no longer be the Cora who meticulously planned her revenge in this world. Only a pathetic mental patient who needed to be under lifelong guardianship. Another 5 years passed. I was already 28 years old. In the mental hospital, 10 years seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. My condition had been stable, not crying or making trouble, as docile as a lamb. I had become one of the most senior patients in this hospital. New doctors, new nurses, they looked at my medical records, listened to the old employees tell my story, their eyes always filled with sighs. What a pity, such a beautiful girl. I heard her family used to be so rich, but later the whole family went to jail, leaving only her. The vicissitudes of life. I hadn't heard any news about Adrian and the others in a long time. They were like stones that had sunk to the bottom of the sea, unable to stir up any waves. Helen should have been released from prison, but she never came to see me, not once. Perhaps she hates me. Perhaps she doesn't dare to face me. Or perhaps she has already forgotten that she once had a daughter named Cora. None of that matters to me anymore. One day, a young intern nurse, while helping me tidy my bed, found a very old copy of Advanced Mathematics under my pillow. She froze, picked it up and flipped through it. The book was filled with dense calculations and notes in delicate handwriting. Sister Cora, she looked at me in surprise. Is this your book? Can you understand it? I was painting by the window. Hearing this, I turned around and gave her a familiar, innocent and harmless smile. I don't understand it. I pointed to the formulas in the book. These little tadpoles lined up are so fun. The intern nurse looked at me, then at the complex formulas in the book, her eyes filled with confusion and incomprehension. In the end, she put the book back and didn't ask any more questions. But from then on, there was a hint of inquiry in her eyes when she looked at me. I didn't care. I have lived in this world constructed of lies for too long. Truth and falsehood, madness and lucidity, have long ceased to have any boundaries for me. I finished my painting. On the paper was a solitary lighthouse, standing on a dark, stormy seashore. A beam of light shot out from the top of the tower, piercing the boundless darkness. I put down my brush, looked at my work, and smiled contentedly. My life may be like this dark sea, full of storms and despair. But I, in the end, lit a lamp for myself. Even if this light can only illuminate me. Even if I will be forever trapped on this solitary tower. But at least I survived. I survived, bearing the sins of all of them. And they will slowly rot in endless regret and darkness. This is the best ending I have chosen for them. And it is the only rebirth I have chosen for myself.